Hi, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me all right? Okay. My name is Alysha, and I'm the network manager of Nimbus. We stand for the Network of Independent Media for Better Understanding and Support. And we're made up of 18 different organizations, which include issue-led advocacy groups like Singapore Climate Rally, traditional online news media organizations like JOM, arts groups like Checkpoint Theatre, and independent publishers like Ethos Books. And Kirsten's newsletter, We the Citizens, and Wake Up Singapore are also founding members of Nimbus. And we encompass a range of organizations, and as the diversity of our membership suggests, we have an expansive view of what constitutes independent media. I don't think I need to go into detail about the state of our press freedom. This year's Reporters Without Borders Press Freedom Index came out on World Press Freedom Day, which was last Friday, and we were ranked number 126 out of 180, which is just 3 points up from 129 in 2023. And as Kirsten said in her very gruesome metaphor earlier, the efforts by the media to draw blood from the stone, kind of the stone draws blood back, and our media workers in Singapore also have to defend themselves from legal threats, as we are well aware. And these deterrences have driven away many journalists and media outlets and left us with a relative dearth of independent media in Singapore, and along with gaps that are left in the knowledge created by traditional newsrooms. So Nimbus's proposition is that issue-led advocacy groups, arts groups, and independent publishers have also stepped in to fill in these gaps of knowledge, and that by coming together with traditional online alternative media, these organizations can facilitate the growth of independent media through knowledge sharing and solidarity. And the idea for Nimbus was first seeded by Singapore Unbound, which is a New York-based literary nonprofit, literary nonprofit that is based in New York that I work with. And we brainstormed among ourselves and our allies last year about how to create space for media practitioners in Singapore. So together with Kirsten and the Mekong Review, last July we organized the first ever independent media fair in Singapore to bring together journalists, media activists, and publishers together to hold conversations behind closed doors as well as with the public to discuss how we can expand the space for freedom of expression in Singapore and how we can collaborate and support one another. So this was the media fair. And the strong public response and the really generative conversations we had at the fair showed us how powerful it is when all of these organizations come together. These are our founding members. And as a result of this first successful gathering last July, we initiated the idea of creating this network, and more than 3/4 of the organizations that participated in the fair opted to be a part of the alliance. When we spoke to these organizations, we found out that independent media organizations in Singapore are blossoming more than ever. We have so many of them, but they're often hard-pressed for time and for funds, and this issue is exacerbated by the legal challenges they face from the state. So without resources and bandwidth, these organizations often work alone without formal coordination with their counterparts. So we formed Nimbus with the goal of sharing resources and information, advocating for policies that support independent media, and promoting independent media to the general public. And when we searched for a name that was expansive enough to accommodate the breadth of all of the 18 founding members and our ambitions for collective, we settled on the acronym NIMBUS, which is also Latin for cloud, with the idea that it would be atmospheric and adaptive in form and the accumulation that was larger than the sum of its parts. And so I managed the network with the support of the New York-based team at Singapore Unbound, with filmmaker and former journalist at the Straits Times and Al Jazeera, Eunice Lau, activist Ji Leong Koh, and veteran activist, teacher, and journalist Prema Mathi, who many of you know as a two-term former NMP and former president of AWARE, who has also been an invaluable advisor to Nimbus as our network takes shape. And so since we launched last October, we've run a number of programs. We ran a digital hygiene training session on navigating Singapore's security landscape, together with New Narratives Media Freedom Network. We ran a sharing session on our members' experiences with legal threats from the state. And we also ran a legal clinic with briefings on POFMA, FICA, and amendments to the Presidential and Parliamentary Elections Act. And so our goal with all of these knowledge sharing sessions is to identify pointers and work towards best practices and proactive measures for independent media outlets to safeguard their work. And slowly but surely, we are compiling this knowledge that we're gathering in these sessions into a working guidebook of sorts that we hope can be a tool for our younger journalists and member organizations to get the experiences and expertise of other members and as they grow and work in the independent media space. And the formation of Nimbus also coincides with the upcoming GE this year, probably. And so a key focus of our activities for this first year is to support the activities of our members to produce rigorous and fair coverage of this year's elections. And we've identified a key issue of this year's election, which is housing, and we focused our programming around it. So 2 weeks ago, we ran a discussion on housing policy for our members and allies, and we invited Prof. Chua Beng Huat and Lo Pei Ying from Continentalist to share their expertise. Continentalist is a member of our network, and they've written extensively on the issue using a data-based approach. And Prof. Chua just published a book containing his analysis of current housing policy. And so we've also created a space for brainstorming, sharing ideas, and collaboration with our monthly meetings that we call happy hours. And in these sessions, we bring our members together for facilitated conversations around their elections coverage strategies. And through these sessions, we've identified opportunities for groups to share resources with one another. And this could look like support with data analysis or access to repositories of parliamentary records or manifestos that have been already compiled and analyzed. And we've also identified opportunities for collaboration and on-the-ground reporting efforts that were started in previous elections and can be developed and amplified by different groups coming together. And so when we work towards the GE, we're actively developing a charter to define in greater detail what Nimbus is and what our member organizations commit to when they join. We started Nimbus with very broad goals to share resources and information, advocate for policies that support independent media, and promote independent media to the general public. And we're still working out concrete processes for consensus building and collective action. And this was we were kind of put to task on this 2 weeks ago when criminal defamation charges were filed against RF and Wake Up SG. And Wake Up SG is a member of Nimbus. So over the past few days, members of the network have come together, working around the clock to draft a statement in support for RFN. And it's naturally challenging, we realized this very quickly, to get absolute agreement in a network that contains such a diversity of groups with different focuses and orientations. And this was our first test as a young network, and the experience has given us a lot to consider in drafting our charter. And we have to ask ourselves what solidarity looks like. How do we find common ground given our diversity? How do we express our solidarity without giving up our perceived best practices from our perspective as journalists and as activists? And are these perspectives inherently conflicting? So these are existential questions for Nimbus that we are actively working through. So we finally will be running the second Independent Media Fair together with Jom on July 20th, which is a Saturday. So I'd like to invite you all to save the date for that. We'll be presenting booths by independent media outlets, and we're planning a really exciting lineup of speaker panels that are in some ways a follow-up from our discussion a year ago as we continue to build up this network. So I hope you can join us, and please follow us on our website or Instagram for updates. Thank you.